In the Quran, you hear two words all the time, prophet and messenger. And look, most of us probably use them interchangeably, right? But what if they aren't the same? What if that difference isn't just a tiny detail, but the absolute key to unlocking the entire structure of the Quranic story? Well, that's what we're about to dive into. So let's start with this idea. The Quran isn't just a book of stories from the past. It presents itself as a living, breathing blueprint. A structure of meaning that's always unfolding, always revealing more light. That's the lens we need to look through today. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the divine blueprint. Then we'll see how that plan got seriously challenged. After that, we'll unlock the critical difference that fixes everything. We'll hear the universal call that came from that. And finally, we'll figure out what it means to inherit God's promise, not by blood, but by belief. Okay, let's start with Act 1, the blueprint. The Quran tells us that God chose a very specific, sacred family line to carry a divine covenant forward through human history, a special assignment for a special lineage. This is what the Qur'an calls a refined strip of humanity. It lays out a very clear progression. It starts with Adam, then moves to Nuh, then to the family of Ibrāhīm, and it culminates with the children of Israel, Banī Isrā'īl. This group, specifically, became the designated field for prophecy. And this is the key term you need to know for this whole first phase, Nubuwah, prophethood. You see, this was an internal mission. It was a cycle of prophets sent specifically to the children of Israel, to guide them, to correct them, and to keep them on track with their special covenant. And that brings us to Act 2, where the central conflict, the big problem, really comes into focus. Because the very guardians of this divine plan, the children of Israel, they fell into this repeating pattern of disobedience, and they ended up challenging the very covenant they were supposed to protect. So it started with the most fundamental failure you can imagine. They just broke the covenant. This wasn't some small mistake. This was the foundational crack in the entire structure. But it didn't stop there. The disobedience got worse. When God sent them guidance in the form of prophets to get them back on track, they didn't just ignore them. No, they actively rejected them. And then the cycle hits rock bottom. It culminates in the most shocking act possible. They actually killed some of the very prophets sent to guide them. At this point, you have to wonder, is the whole divine plan about to collapse? And listen, this isn't just a historical retelling. This is a direct charge from the Quran itself. The question just hangs there in the air, right? It totally exposes the massive breakdown between the community and their divine mission. So you've got this massive problem, a broken cycle. How do you fix it? Well, this is where it gets incredible. Act 3 reveals the solution. And it turns out the fix was embedded in the blueprint from the very beginning, and it all comes down to this critical distinction between two roles. Now, this is just a stunning piece of the master plan. The Quran tells us that God took a covenant from all the previous prophets. Their job wasn't just for their own time and people. It was also to prepare the way, to build up to, and to support one final universal figure, the messenger. This brings us right to the heart of this whole explainer. This is the big question. The difference between a prophet and a messenger isn't just a word game. It's the master key that unlocks the entire Quranic story of revelation. Okay, let's break it down. It's really clear. A Nabī, a prophet, had an internal job, a corrective mission. They were sent to Banī Isrā'īl to guide them back to their covenant. Their work bent inward. But a Rasūl, a messenger, has a totally different job. It's a universal command, a message for all of humanity. The mission opens outward to everyone. All right, let's move into Act 4, because this isn't just some theory I'm cooking up. The Quran itself reinforces this difference with incredibly precise and deliberate language. It creates a firewall between these two roles. Now get this. This piece of evidence is just wow. Search the entire Quran from front to back. You will never find a single verse that gives a universal command to, quote, follow your prophet. That specific phrase, it's just not there. But on the flip side, what do you find? In sharp contrast, the command to follow the messenger is everywhere. It's repeated, it's explicit, and it's clearly aimed at everybody. Follow the messenger, obey the messenger, take what the messenger gives you. The language is crystal clear, it's consistent, and it's universal. And it all comes to a head right here in the Shahādah, the absolute core testimony of faith. And I want you to notice the incredible precision. It doesn't say Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. It says he is the messenger of Allah. That term is exact. It's not expandable. It seals this fundamental Qur'anic distinction once and for all. So, what does this all mean? What's the huge consequence of unlocking this message? Well, our final act explains who gets to inherit the divine promise now. And let me tell you, the criteria have fundamentally changed. This universal call, it leads to something called the Ahmedic station. And this isn't a title you get or a family you're born into. It's a spiritual state. It describes a believer whose life is just no longer their own. It's been fully surrendered, you could say purchased, by God. And this idea of a divine purchase isn't just poetry. It's right there in the Qur'an. Think of it like a transaction. A believer trades their attachment to their own self, their own ego, their own stuff, in exchange for an eternal promise. It's how you confirm your alignment with the divine. So here's the bottom line. The inheritance of God's covenant is no longer based on who your ancestors were. It's not about your blood. It's not about your tribe. It's confirmed by one thing and one thing only: a conscious, willful alignment with the universal message. And that is available to anyone. So knowing all of this, what do? It actually gives us a really clear roadmap. We have to hold the line that revelation itself has drawn. Follow the messenger, be precise with your language, just like the Qur'an is. Don't fall back into those old cycles of disobedience and just repeating what you've heard, and ground your understanding in real knowledge. So there it is, the whole blueprint. The Qur'an draws the lines, the messenger completes the mission, and the righteous inherit the promise. The only question left, the one that's personal for every single one of us, is this. Faced with this completed picture, by what or by whom do you choose to align?